What's growing on, gardeners? On today's 2-Minute Garden Tip, I'm going to give you my biggest tip for success starting seeds. And that tip is to overseed each planting location. And this is true whether you're growing directly in ground or starting your plants in a seed cell tray. Overseeding is simply the act of placing more than one seed per planting location, and we do this because germination rates for seeds are not 100%. So if you only place one seed per planting location, you are going to have locations where nothing germinates. So how many seeds should you place per location? Well, that depends on what you're growing. For cheap seed like lettuce or cabbage, I recommend placing 3 seeds per location. For more expensive seed like a tomato or a pepper, I recommend you place at least 2 per location. That's what I do with my tomato transplants, and it's a good thing I did because several of them I only got 1 tomato seed that came up in each individual peat pellet. But because I overseeded, every single one of my peat pellets at least has 1 tomato plant in it. Now that you've overseeded your ground, you are going to have numerous locations where multiple plants come up. Now you have to engage in a process called thinning. That's because you have a lot of plants that are germinating right next to each other, and you need to thin them out because they're occupying a space together that's too tight and they will effectively choke each other out. When thinning your plants, it is very important that you don't do this right away as soon as the seedlings germinate. That's because I've had many instances where after germination, one of the seedlings will wither away and die. So you want to wait until they become a bit established and a clear dominant one emerges. So looking at these 2 cabbage plants, they actually appear to be pretty identical in this case, so you could cut either one of these off, and I'm just going to choose this one right here. We're going to snip that off. And then with the excess cabbage plant, you could either throw this in your compost pile or you could just chop that up and mulch it around the plants. But it is important that you give each individual plant enough room to grow. And don't worry about the roots of the old cabbage plant. They will naturally break down and turn into compost. Now, I know for some of you it's going to be very painful to take clippers and snip off perfectly healthy plants. And you may be wondering, can I save the additional plants that I don't necessarily need? And the answer is yes, especially when they're started in larger transplant trays and individual peat pellets like this. If you get a good separation in between those individual plants, you can cut them down the middle and then break them off and put them into individual pots, and they can take. But if you do that, you do run the risk of killing both in the process if you disturb the roots too much. So keep that in mind. If you already have enough plants, it may not be worth the risk. And that's today's 2-Minute Garden Tip. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.